Okay, so this week we're doing facings, and obviously this part can get a bit complicated because what is a facing? How does it apply to clothing? Generally, what it is, and also if you read the brief, you'll read that a facing is something that cleans off a neckline, and when I mean cleaned off, I mean it's something that is stitched into the neck or into the arm or into the armhole, or both the neck and armhole at times, um, and it makes a clean finish around the neck and the armhole. And so some of the pictures that's previous to this clip are facings and how they look when they are stitched on. But what I wanted to show you is how the facing is actually made on the pattern, because it has to be made from the pattern that you've already made. So what we've got here is I just traced out our basic bodice. So it's just the basic bodice that I traced out, and I don't need the bottom part of the pattern, I just need the top part of the pattern. And I wanted to show you, this is all that I did. I traced out the front and I traced out the back. This is just a demonstration. You have to continue to do what is told to you in the brief. So this is just purely a demonstration of what a facing is and how it's actually done. So I find it easier actually just to take my facing, and I've got my tracing wheel here, and we want our neckline cleaned out and we want our armhole cleaned out, because I've labeled it over here separate armhole and neckline facing. And in order to, it needs to be a clean curve pattern from the center front to the side seam, and from the underarm side seam right into the shoulder. So we need to close the dart so that it's just basically it's nice and clean, and that there's no interruption on the pattern on the outside. So I'm going to take my pencil, and I'm physically going to close the dart. So I'm going to hold my pencil at the bust suppression dart, which is there, and I'm going to close the dart like that, right? And I'm going to retrace the outside edge like so, and I'm tracing my armhole, right? So I'm going to do this with my arm, and I'm going to trace down the side seam as well, like that. So I've basically, without having cut into anything, I've closed my dart, and I've got my measuring tape here. And because you get a few different types of facings. A separate facing is a piece of fabric that closes the armhole like that, and then you get another piece that is separate from this that closes the neckline like that. So I'm going to draw in the lines of my dart that I just closed. So that's like so, that edge is there, and this edge is here, right? And I'm going to draw in my my armhole, excuse me, right? So I'm going to decide how wide I want my facing to be. The decision is always up to you. The standard size of facing can be between 5 and 6.5 centimeters, depending on what it is that you're making. This can also clean off necklines that have a collar, but then you only need your neckline facing. And if you have a sleeve, you don't have a facing, because your sleeve will be stitched in there and it doesn't need closing off. So I'm going to draw in this is 6 centimeters wide, so I'm going to make this 2.5. I'm going to start with the facing at the neck, 2.5, and I'm going to take my measuring tape and basically walk around, measuring 2.5 all the way around, like so. So as you can see, all the way around like so, and we're going to fill in that line, right? And then this is a bit curved like so, and I'm going to measure, and now we're going to do a armhole facing, which is, and we measure exactly the same, 2.5, and we walk the measuring tape around all the way around. It has to be a completely balanced line all the way around, like so. Right, and we are going to fill in that line. So remember, if you have a dress or if you have a top or a shirt that doesn't have a sleeve, and you don't want to have the overlock line and the stitch line down there, the best way to clean off that armhole is to have a facing. So now I just want to carry on into the back, because remember the front facing needs to continue on into the back facing, and exactly the same way that I closed the front dart, I am going to close the back dart. So I'm going to put my pencil there at the base like so, and I'm going to draw in the shoulder line, and I'm going to draw in my underarm seam like so, right? So as you can see, I just wanted to bring your attention to the fact that this line is now skew at the shoulder. So I'm going to straighten that shoulder. This is the corner of the shoulder here, the corner of the shoulder and the armhole, and I'm going to center back neck on the shoulder, back neck on the shoulder, excuse me, and I'm going to make the line straight. Right, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that my armhole is drawn in. Right, and I'm going to draw in 2.5 centimeters because it's a continuation of the facing in the front. Right, so like that, and I'm doing this freehand because it's comfortable for me to keep the line continuous, and I'm going to continue that on. Like so. All the way around, and I'm going to draw my back armhole facing in, freehand again. Right, so once this has been drawn in onto your pattern, you would need to retrace these pieces, you have to label them. It's very important to label your facings because they are tiny pieces and they have a very annoying tendency of getting lost, and you need them. They are vital. So you need to mark them the moment you actually trace them out. So this needs to be traced out and that needs to be traced out. Seam allowance must be added here and here at the shoulder seams and around the armhole itself and the armhole itself and the neckline itself and the side seam, because these need to be stitched into your garment. Right? All facings must be fused. If it's a stretch garment, it's stretch fusing. If it's a woven garment, it's non-stretch fusing. It's fused because the neckline and the armhole mustn't be stretched out once somebody puts it on. So it must be stable. So this is what a separate armhole facing looks like. The next one I wanted to show you was the combined facing, which is basically doing a neckline and armhole facing, but to have it all in one. So I'm going to show you what that looks like. So basically, let's close this dart again. Let's position it properly. Okay, there we go. Pencil down. I'm closing my dart and I'm tracing out my shoulder line. Side seam. Right. So now I've got my front dart closed, and I am going to do my armhole like so. And then let's just mark that out properly. There we go. Okay, so now that we've got our armhole and neckline and now our dart that's closed, I'm going to show you what it looks like to do a combined facing, basically a facing that closes both the armhole and the neckline all in one go. So what I'm going to do is, because we need some sort of balance here, I'm going to mark out 2.5 like that, 2.5 around. Okay, so that we can get a proper curvature around the neckline and the armhole. It needs to be absolutely perfect because it needs to close it properly. Okay, and then let's just get that there. So okay, and like that, and then up to a certain point I am going to draw the facings. I don't go right till the end. I don't go right until the shoulder point. I'm going to stop close to the shoulder point, which is there, right there, and I'm going to start with the neckline like so. So if you can see that I haven't gone right up to the arm right up to the shoulder, I stopped very close. I need the curvature of this armhole and the curvature of the neckline to be absolutely perfect, and then I'm going to just use my hand and I'm going to curve into the front neckline facing, like so. So in other words, this entire section is now the facing, like that, like so, and that's what it looks like. This entire piece must now be traced out, and we do exactly the same thing on the back. And I'm going to close this dot like that. I'm going to trace it out. Okay, and let's curve it in like that. Okay, make sure that your lines are accurate. Okay, and I'm going to straighten my shoulder again, and because this is a full facing, a combined facing, we are going to, once again, same technique as we did in the front, we do in the back. 2.5. This is just my own measurement, guys. I'm not saying that this is what your measurements should be. You determine what your measurement should be, but generally, because this is a half scale pattern, 2.5 works well. With full scale patterns, generally the size or the width of a facing is between 5 and 6.5. So let's continue this quickly. We're almost done, like that. Like so. Okay, like that. And once again, we are going to curve this in and like that. Okay, and exactly the same as I did over there, I am now going to do over here so that these 2 points can be properly connected. Right, so let me just close that up so this is visible to you. Okay, right, and then this will be retraced, and this will be retraced and cut, and those ones that are retraced, those ones get seam allowance and are cut out and are marked properly, and that's a combined facing. Also, let me just mention that some patterns just require a neck facing, some patterns just require a armhole facing, but it's according to the design that is done, then that is applicable, and you will know when it's necessary for only an arm facing, only a neck facing, or only a combined facing.